Ben Askren has said that when he gets done with Paul, he's going to do a few more of these stupid reality boxing matches. He called them a stupid reality boxing match. He is 50% of said stupid reality boxing match and says that he would like to do more. But the mere fact that Ben Askren called them stupid is why they'll never quit working for Ben Askren. I'm just sharing that with you, right? The truth will set you free. And if you ever try to dupe or fool the audience, it's not going to work. If you ever act as though the audience is anything less than your accomplice, you get caught and you look like a fool. I mean, even in the world of pro wrestling, I will show up to those things when they come to Portland. I have a great time. Get as good a tickets as I can. I'll wait in line early. I'll call early. I'll look for favors, whatever I have to do. I mean, it's a big deal for me, and they only come to town once. Make sure I got a ticket for myself. Make sure I got a ticket for my son. But it's one of these things where when I do go, I will get amped up. Now, that's not because I think that the athlete using a steel folding chair to hit his opponent, who I happen to be cheering for, while the referee with an earpiece lay unconscious because Bobby Heenan hit him over the head a moment ago. I mean, it's not one of these things. I'm willing to suspend reality, but you can't insult me. You just can't do it. I will be looking for the blade. So if you cut yourself in a match and you don't palm the blade and get it back into your shoe or trunks or into the turnbuckle, you're going to have ruined my experience. I understand that these wrestlers are cooperating. I understand that they call a match live in the match. But if I hear you and or see your mouth speaking to your opponent, you've now ruined it for me. I will suspend reality by choice. But you need to be good at your craft. And a lot of people have jobs. And many people have careers. But very few people have a craft. So when you have somebody like Ben Askren, who is a master of his craft, but also would never insult the audience. I mean, it's a very beautiful thing. Let's just say Askren beats Jake and he draws into Brother Logan, which is a highly likely scenario. Okay, highly likely scenario based on how that match goes. If Askren continues to call this a stupid reality boxing match, he's going to continue to get headlines. And he's going to continue to have the trust of the audience. And Paul's going to quickly come out and say that it's not stupid and it's none of those things and this is my livelihood, but neither one of them is lying. For Ben Askren, who has been to the Olympic Games, fighting a YouTube nerd on pay-per-view is stupid. But if you're the YouTube nerd, to be in the ring with a guy who's won 2 world championships in 2 different organizations on 2 different weight classes, it's very real. So neither one of them is lying, and now neither one of them is insulting the audience. And as part of watching all of this, I got to see Frank Mir's training. And I will share with you, of all the people who train, I am Frank's friend. I will share with you, of all of the people who trained, which was everybody on the card, nobody looked as out of their orbit as Mir. It was so bad watching my friend, Frank, I had to fast forward part of it. And then I had to tell myself that what I saw was Frank playing for the cameras. I don't know that that's the case. I think this is probably going to be a real bad experience if you're Team Mir. Mir is one of the guys who is of the greats of MMA, who had the great careers, who made the most money, who can go to bed and on to the next chapter of his life feeling fulfilled, a world champion on 2 separate occasions, who overcame adversity, overcame a wreck that was supposed to ruin his career, headlined the biggest card in history. I mean, I could go on and insert Frank Mir. Frank told me this, what I'm about to tell you. Frank told me this in an airport in Miami about himself. He said, Chael, I am very good at jiu-jitsu. I could never place in Abu Dhabi. I could never place in the Mundos. He said, I'm a very good boxer. I could never go and try to represent this country, even in the amateurs, in a World or Olympic Games. He said, I'm a very good wrestler, but I could never go to the U.S. Open and expect to be around on day 2. And he's telling the truth. But the point Frank was trying to say is I know just enough about everything to make sure that I know more than my opponent does at something. If he's as good at me as grappling, I will hurt him on our feet. If he's pretty good at kicking, I will take him to the ground. Said I know just enough about everything to make sure that I can always have a strength against my opponent. It was a very interesting self-reflection by Frank, and this was back in 2008. Frank Mir had a lot of asses left to whip. This wasn't Frank that was on his way out and was trying to pat himself on the back. This was active, busy Frank, who went on and won another world championship. It was a very interesting self-assessment, but it's also one that I've kept with me. I've kept with me because I think that Frank is right, and I don't just mean about himself. I mean about most of the greats. Most of the very, very good fighters today did not come in masters of a craft. There was a time when if you were a world champion in jiu-jitsu, you'd run through everybody, or a world champion in wrestling, you could run through anybody, or, a Maurice Smith could beat everybody in the world, K1 guy could run through everybody. But now it's a lot more of the Frank Mir. It's a lot more of a guy who knows just enough about this, and he knows just enough about that, and he can do just enough of these things, can go all the way to the top in MMA. And I've tried to figure out why, and I've tried to think of, well, why is that? And there's a couple of different philosophies. One is just simply that MMA, as we know it today, is a sport that kids start at 11 and 12 and 13 years old. And they just learn the sport of MMA. They never take the time to learn one specific craft or discipline because it's a sport in and of itself. I think that there's a strong argument to that. Another one would be adversely, why does a guy master of his craft not come over and do well? It's because he's so disciplined to his own craft. If you're a wrestler and you are so locked in that whoever can get the top position is going to win, and if I don't go out there and I don't get a takedown, that will mean I'm not showing my sport of wrestling and I've done something right. If you get so locked into one of these things, you don't see everything else. And that's another very reasonable piece of logic as to why a guy that can dabble, a guy that knows just a little bit, a Frank Mir. TJ Dillashaw was very good at wrestling. That's where it ended. He wasn't a master. I bring TJ because he learned his kickbox. TJ's as good of a kickboxer as the sport has. He learned that in the practice room. You guys ever thought about it like that? TJ Dillashaw, who's won world championships and done it on his feet, overcame an 8-1 betting line to beat Renan Barão, did it all on his feet, learned how to do that in a practice room. TJ Dillashaw, who's a master of jiu-jitsu, did it all in a practice room. He never entered competitions in either one of those disciplines. TJ's just a name that came right to my head. Volkanovski was a rugby player. So when he got into MMA, it was straight MMA. Adesanya was a very masterful kickboxer, but he was not some undefeated world champion, a Clarissa Shields type, if you will. Adesanya possibly was so good that he doesn't quite qualify for the example I'm trying to make. I'm just thinking on my head running through all of the guys. Blachowicz would fall into the same category. Francis Ngannou would fall into the same category. He had dreams of being a boxer, but he never actually pursued that. He's one of these guys, and if you know just a little, it seems that just a little of enough things is enough in the sport of MMA. It's a fascinating concept. Where is enough? Where are the strengths? How much of this do you need? How much of this can you ignore? And I think that's the harder question. How much of this do you need is going to be philosophical. How much of this can I ignore? The answer is none.